You all set now?
Yes.
All right, now let's call a meeting to order for the planning board for December 5th, 2018, to order at 7:03 PM. Roll call, please.
Yes. Let's see, Anthony Rich? Jeff Sheldon is here. Here. Mike Carpenter is here. Joe Garrett Chair is here. Also present are our staff, Jennifer Siciliano and Joanna Achille, attorney, and Helen Hardy, whatever, I am, secretary, and also Sandy Hopkins. Sandy Sheldon is here, and Gordon Rogers is here. So we are good.
And Richard Sparks is
Not yet, though.
Close.
Did you say that?
Oh, I didn't.
Okay. Okay, now accept the motion for approval of minutes for November 7th.
So moved.
Got a second? Second by Jeff. Any discussion on the minutes? Nothing? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Is there any correspondence this evening?
Just the spreadsheet that I gave you, is updated. Just to let you know that I spoke to another solar installation yesterday. Someone's interested in doing something off Snagwood Road, so they'll be submitting a pre-app soon. And it's a very large property, very large, like 120 acres.
How many?
Like 120 acres.
For another solar farm?
Oh, and I also, today, I got the preliminary application for the Kutu property. For the, it's a minor subdivision, so today, so I'll be, that'll be coming up. I still have to advertise it for a public hearing.
Joe, may I ask the attorney a question here?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right, we have this new revision from Jennifer for solar farms. What's the process and/or the speed we can get this approved before we draw in more applications on solar? So,
it goes to the town council next,
right?
and I would assume that they would take it up at, I don't know if it would be enough time, perhaps enough time to get it on the December 13th, but I'm not, but if it doesn't get on that meeting, it will be.
So it has to be publicly,
Well, I believe the town council will bring it on for discussion first, and then it has to be publicly advertised. It needs to be a 3-week advertising period. It needs to go in the town hall, and then they vote on it. So the soonest, if it gets extremely fast tracked, I would say probably February is when they vote on it.
okay, so let me change it. If they added it to their discussion Thursday night, tomorrow night, which they could do, not action, they could discuss it, publicly advertise it for the December meeting, and could that end it?
It couldn't be advertised, you need 3 weeks.
You put it on for
3 weeks, okay.
But tomorrow night, tomorrow night's meeting, I believe it's just a swearing in. I don't think it's a full meeting. The 13th is the regular meeting.
Yeah. All right, so next Thursday, and then, but if they did add it to tomorrow night's meeting for discussion, then they'd have the 3 weeks for public,
For
they'd have-
January.
Well, it has to be
I don't
advertised.
think there's another
All
December
right,
meeting.
okay, well, I'm trying to, they could have a special meeting to pass this, right?
I think we are,
Public-
I think we're having a meeting on
13.
tomorrow night and then on the
The
13th.
13th.
So then you could have a special meeting and get this passed, publicly advertised.
Well, they got,
That's their
All right, well, I'm just, see, I'm trying to, okay?
Before other people.
it's gotta be in the paper.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Before other people come in and do
Yeah,
this.
so that's up to the council. Thank you.
Alright. Okay,
Everybody for the council here?
No,
was there any other correspondence? Is there anything else on the spreadsheet?
On this spreadsheet,
Yeah.
we never heard anything else from that other solar farm, right? That's all solar.
No, I haven't heard anything other than, that they didn't get approval from DEM, so they are redoing it. They told me they were gonna be submitting, that they were gonna be submitting preliminary plans, but I have not.
Okay, and the one that was approved a while ago, that hasn't done anything,
Danielson?
meeting house, Route 6 and.
City School.
Well, Schoolhouse, yeah, but,
I don't, I haven't heard.
do they have a certain time that they have to, once they've been approved to start it and,
Yes.
12 months from the time they get the permit.
But I think that that just got updated, right, by the state.
That's the subdivision. Yeah, it's typically 12 months and then an automatic 2-year renewal, but you have to ask for it.
They've dug their service road through. I mean, they have started something on it.
well, within a little bit, but they have 12 months to do it, and then after that,
They can re-up.
they have to come back and
No, they just sent a letter saying they want to re-up and it gets 2 years renewed.
within the 1 year.
No, you get another 2 years on top of that,
But they have to do that within the first 12 months.
before the 12 months runs out.
What I did hear on that Route 6 one was they hit a snag with an endangered species at DEM, so that could be their holdup.
All right.
Okay, is there any other correspondence?
So was it, I'm sorry, just to clarify, was it Quorum Solar up on 101 that didn't get DEM approval? Was that
Yes.
one?
Yes.
Yeah, they had some questions they wanted to,
It's a major.
some stuff they didn't have on their plan, that they didn't like, some, they didn't show. Okay, so, moving on,
Just says
you all set on the spreadsheets, everybody?
Thank you for the spreadsheets, Jeff.
All right, board members' reports, you got anything on land trust, Mike?
No, other than they're still working on the Commonwealth Road property. So as soon as I get something on it, I'll bring it up.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask, does the land trust own any property on Route 6 or? No.
I don't think so, that I remember, no.
I wanted to say no right away, but
Closest thing to Route 6 would be by the Hopkins Mill Cemetery there,
yeah, I would think that's where the old Spencer
well,
property.
the other side.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be in there. Okay, nothing on conservation, Rick's not here. All right, comp plan update. What do we have on that?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. Actually, I talked to Denise and I'm gonna be coming in for a few hours on Sundays so that I can get some peace and write it. Helen, I should probably work with you and get a date for the,
Natural resources.
yeah,
Yeah, give me natural resources and let me
looks
get
great.
going. Yeah.
How about the housing stuff, Jennifer? I missed
Do
you
you
the
wanna
other,
look at it?
I missed you the other day. I was bringing you all of the, you had left, you were not feeling well. And I had all, I went through all my old files and I guess the most reliable information we have is around 2014.
Okay,
But I do have a bunch of stuff for housing that I can just
give me.
give you, come in Sunday, and then maybe we can get together after that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
give you a chance to see what you did.
yeah, if Sunday's good for you, because I'm told her to come in from 12 to 5.
That's fine.
The comp plan, can we just send in the parts that are done and get some feedback from the state on that? No? Okay. Well, another 12 years.
All right, so anything else on the top plan from anybody, any questions? All right, we're on to our agenda items on zoning. We have a advisory opinion on the solar installation for town council requested. They sent us some edits, some comments from our last meeting, where they had a chance to look it over. Any questions, if you want to just...
Yeah, so I reviewed the discussion, and I think the basic things that people all agreed on were that there would be terrain masking as required for vegetative buffer, a required landscaping performance bond. I put for at least 5 years with third-party cost estimates, and require third-party cost estimates for decommissioning bond, because right now they're just telling us how much it's gonna cost. And also, I think what I got from the discussion was requiring that all major solar be considered a major land development. Right now, you have major, if it's under a certain amount, I think 250 kilowatts, it's a minor. So that you have more control over the process. It still would mean like the people who do it at home wouldn't need to come. And I mean, some people talked about having it not in commercial and having it not in residential or whatever, but I don't think the group agreed on that. So this is what I got on it. So I made those changes.
You might have,
Go ahead.
since we did ours, I don't know if anybody's seen the changes that Gloucester put in. Makes ours look like Crystal Brookies. They put some pretty serious restrictions on solar plants, solar farms coming into the town of Gloucester.
Yeah, and some interesting things too about like the fence height to allow critters underneath.
Yeah.
A lot of detail.
That,
I think it's quite detailed.
I mean, that part of it, he would have to be it makes sense to let critters to get underneath and get out. That does make sense. I mean, our town is the only one at a 9-foot height in the whole state of Rhode Island. That's so that they can't jump in. But if you had a lower fence and they jump in, that means they can jump up. But there are restrictions where we put 100-foot buffers, they're at 500 and 300. Yeah. In the town of Boston. So, I don't know if we should maybe rediscuss this.
Just, because I seen that after we had that meeting.
Exactly, I didn't know how, I mean, so that means, and the only reason why I say that is they allowed solar farms in the town of Boston before we did. So they kind of like did what we did, and they were, okay, this is a good idea, this is great. And they started, and there was a few up that went in and lost it. And then after the dust settled, the town of Boston kind of a little bit like we did, looked at it and said, okay, we need to put the brakes on this, or if someone wants to do it. So we're always a step behind, where we thought we were a step ahead by let's make the buffers bigger. I could not believe when I read their changes and their planning board has put up for buffers and so forth. Side buffers are a lot bigger than what we thought. Rear buffers are a lot bigger than we thought, and on major plans. So I guess that would fall back to what we originally said. If somebody wants to do it, this is what they have to do.
Right, 'cause we were talking about buffers and then, or setbacks last meeting, and then we went along with this.
With terrain masking,
Terrain
I think that's what
masking,
we
yeah.
talked about, yeah. that's what
Because
we said.
when we decided that, the maximum you could never give a variance for less. So that was part of our discussion, I believe, I remember that coming up. That if it's 500 feet, somebody can't get a variance for less, that's gonna be.
Right.
So that's when we said, well, we might get suggested, terrain masking, he's trying to go in that route.
That terrain masking would make it interesting for somebody who wants to, who wanted them up. That might be kind of like the way you said, that might cover it. and around
Because
the way.
what we did consider too was the elevation of Foster. So if somebody wanted to stick one up on the hill, even if you had a 500-foot setback, you'd have an optical pollution that we're trying to eliminate.
Right.
And the abutters would object if you had solar glare off these panels in your house. And I think we kind of like, the terrain masking kind of gives us year-round,
That's right, gives us a little flexibility.
gives us
on
that
it.
ability to interpret that.
Yeah,
And
if it means
I think
500
that
feet the terrain mask, that's what
You
you're
got
gonna
it.
have to do.
Yeah,
you
right,
can't,
that's what-
Gotcha.
it's kind of like you can't see it,
Gotcha.
period.
Nice job, buddy. Okay. Take his last one, learn off of us.
I explained that to the applicant yesterday too, what you guys were thinking about, the terrain masking.
They didn't know what it was, did they?
Well, they didn't, but I said basically, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it.
Okay, anybody else have any input on that? I didn't know if anybody wanted it. I thought about this and I didn't think, I don't know if I brought it at a meeting or not last time. But as far as, I know the GBM has a couple of solars up there already. And we were concerned about our commercial zones going all solar. So I don't know if you wanted to put any language in there to maybe make it an accessory use. So if somebody wants a rooftop or something in a GBM or commercial, they can still do it. Or, you know, if they have a business and they have an array on the same property, but, so it wouldn't be allowed to have just a solar on the property in a commercial zone. You know, so our commercial zones would revert to more solars in
Or somebody wouldn't build a big up that they could put it.
you know, but I didn't know if that was something you guys wanted to consider, I just wanted to put it out there. You know, something we could recommend to the council if you think that's a good idea, to try to save some of our commercial zones from, you know, going over. We already lost 2 properties to solar.
Once you eliminate it out of commercial,
Excuse me?
don't allow it, even with a special use permit in commercial, because you can't it's almost impossible to redesignate new commercial property. You're gonna get beat up left and right, so like with the marijuana, you look at certain zones where you don't want it. I think you got a viable argument to say, we eliminate it out of commercial zoning at this point, and don't allow it moving forward. Because less than 1% of our commercial property, of our entire property is commercial, so, and they're purchasing the commercial property because they get less pushback from neighbors because it's on Route 6. And we're losing a tremendous amount of possible revenue versus being commercial businesses there. So my suggestion would be, don't allow it, period, even without a special use permit, in our commercial zone.
Well, yeah, and that's why I said it was an accessory, as far as if somebody had a business and they wanted to put it on their roof, you know, where it's not gonna be the primary use, you know. They couldn't just, like what they're doing now, is just put a solar.
Right.
So if they have, if you build a warehouse and you wanna put a solar on the roof,
We got a limit, somebody could put a house up, or, you know, well, that wouldn't be commercial property, they could put a 10 by 10 shed up and say, there's your building.
So,
Well, it's just not.
No, I think it's a good idea, Joe. I think you're onto something.
Get feedback from the board on it.
I do think, I discussed before, eliminating it from some of our zones. We've also had discussions about increasing our, or adding some zones. Anthony's talked about dual zones. But the amount of commercial space we have is not going to help us in the future. So I think zoning needs to be looked at. And one thing we really need, I'll ask Helen Mayo, do we have a potential real build-out, citizens-wise or housing-wise, any place? Have we ever done, we have, okay. So there are maps.
There were.
Okay, there were. All right, so,
There were maps of the GBM, you know, of all the lots on Route 6 also. They considered,
Do you mean build-outs, or do you mean like population projections?
population,
Projections,
you know, 5-acre zoning, we really need a map to say how much of Foster is wet, what the population potential is, and what land is dry and could be possibly used for commercial. So, I don't know, I don't care if it's part of the comprehensive plan or not, but at some point, the council and this board needs that information to move forward with some of the issues. In fact, all the issues are always going to come down to zoning, all right? So without that information of high and dry spaces, I can give you one. There's one at Old Plainfield Pike, the whole mountain is cleared, okay? And it's a beautiful spot for a solar farm. So, but we don't know that. There are people that own all kinds of parcels in this town and we don't know because, you know, somehow I talked about this before, a map that you could put different overlays over and see how different things line up when you're trying to work this. So this is in the future. I'll just leave it at that.
no, it's actually it's in the past.
Well,
We had that exactly.
Right,
We had the
Where is
map of the town,
yeah.
and it had the overlay.
The overlays, where is that?
The wet, you know,
Yeah.
spaces or what was built.
Is it in her office, you think?
Part of it's right there.
In the,
No.
No, on that board.
yeah,
Jennifer,
some part, you know, in the attic in the townhouse.
It might be in the attic, it's
But,
not.
you know, it was.
Yeah, I remember it. That's why I keep asking.
Yeah, that's basically that thing right there,
Yeah.
but clear. It's exactly that switched over to a
With all the
layout.
overlays that went.
So maybe we can hunt that down.
I know
was-
that the
Because it
the
was
USDA
so-
does maps for parcels. Like, when you do, they do an analysis, like if you go to the open space program, they analyze your property for what's wet, what types, you know, so then they give you a percentage of usable land on your property, so that they value, you know, what your discount on your taxes.
DEM will give it to you. If you go to DEM, they'll pull up a GPS map and it shows everything right there.
Right,
They'll give you a
satellite
printout,
map.
exactly showing you where the wetland is and how far it goes and where it doesn't go.
Right.
So you can almost get a pretty decent idea from that.
Some of our plat maps in town hall in
Yeah.
the room there, they've got like seasonal high wet, you know, they got, what's considered wetlands, high water, you know, just high water table. At some point in time, they were on the maps.
Okay.
Back to what you were saying, Joe, which I know where you're going, and I've seen some factories or some bigger commercial properties that put up a solar square or have some solar panels near their building that they use obviously on their building, not making money off of it, using it for their commercial reasons for what they have. The question is, would they, we don't have anything like that, but if we did have one, would they have to put that up? They would have to go get a permit or whatever from zoning to
They'd
put
have to get a
that,
special use permit anyway.
to go put it up after.
Yeah, because everything is allowed through special use permit. Like you can't
Okay,
just do
so
it.
we probably don't have to put it in the wording, Joe, if they have to do that.
Well, I know that, but I mean, right now, you can just take that property and just put solar on it all by itself.
Yeah, that's what we're
So
trying
that's
to.
what we're trying to prevent, is by not
Yes.
allowing it.
I agree.
But you don't want to stop somebody if they have a building, they want to do rooftop, they should have that ability.
Well, that's just, if somebody has a building, per se, and they wanted to come and put solar on the top of their roof or put a big section or whatever they do in the back of the area that they would have to come and get a special use permit to do that, correct? They couldn't just erect solar in the back of their
Right.
business,
If
correct?
it was large enough, if it wasn't a small.
Yeah, I'm not saying a big solar thing that they sell off the kilowatts, I'm just saying enough solar to run their business.
Right,
Run
they
their-
would have to get a permit.
There you go. So,
But anybody can buy a vacant lot right now that's zoned TBM or commercial, and just put a standalone solar
Yeah.
so I
facility.
think 3 years ago, I fought that
Yeah, I
person.
know.
So
Yeah.
let me suggest this. We have this thing Jennifer's done, I think it's well done. And I think a note to move forward with this to the council for them to deal with if they want to restrict it at this point from commercial. Okay, they can, when we send this forward, they can do it. So my suggestion is we're gonna make a motion on this?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we accept what Jennifer's written, move it forward to the council.
Do one at a time, so move to accept Jennifer's.
Yes, okay, I'll do that. Accept Jennifer's proposals and move it forward to the council.
Second.
Second by Anthony, discussion. Mike,
Yes.
did you have something? you
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
say?
I just wanted to give a reassurance on the concept of business solar, because we have to keep in mind the panels, the low voltage panels that generate electricity. It's 4 acres per megawatt. When megawatt sounds like a lot, but it's really not much when you think about a business. So an acre of roof is a lot of roof, and that would only produce about 250 kilowatts, which is about the same as a little emergency generator you might find outside a bank or something. So, yeah, so it goes to scale, you know, the scale of the production capability would limit the investment in the material required to generate that.
So we don't have to worry.
Yeah, it's not likely that you're gonna sell that to a board of directors,
Right.
because there's no payback.
Okay, I make an amendment to that motion that a letter be written, a separate letter amendment, addendum be written to the council that they discuss and at this point of stopping all solar farms from going into commercial zone.
Have a second on the amendment?
Second.
Any
Well,
discussion?
Solar
actually,
farms.
Anthony needs to second it, because Anthony seconded the original one.
Yeah, oh, yeah, second.
Discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you. All right. Back to medical marijuana.
So I know that I didn't give it to you, I'm just giving it to you now, so you can take it home and look at it, but I can just tell you what we talked about a little bit. So I have 2 copies. One is the changes I made from what you proposed last time, and then one with comments. So if I look at the comments, I can remember what was said.
First of all, I'd like to just tell everybody, I looked into and found out medical marijuana is not the same chemical, whatever, as a strength, but it's chemical. So kids going in a medical marijuana field and taking it, it's hemp, or I'm sorry.
Hemp, that's what you mean.
Yes,
Hemp.
I'm
Oh,
sorry. Hemp farm.
you're talking about medical marijuana?
Sorry, so I was talking, we did talk about hemp, I'm sorry.
Right.
In this, and there was discussion, do we need a fence and all that business? The answer is no. Sorry,
Yeah,
Yes.
hemp is,
I knew what I was
it's a
talking about.
different plant, yeah.
Yeah.
I researched a little bit about the hemp plant, and you're correct. It is like marijuana, except it's a special seed that doesn't have a lot of THC or very
So
tiny.
there you have that.
So, the state is having a pilot program where you can get a license to grow hemp. And I guess they are going to give the licenses, and then they're going to see how it works. And then possibly it would be allowed. But I think it would, I guess we can think about that when it happens.
So it's not allowed in the state right now to grow hemp?
It's only allowed if you get these licenses, and they haven't given them out yet.
So it is.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that we were talking about before, about marijuana dispensaries, if it ever becomes legal in this state, and this is something we might want to deal with, the traffic problems that they're having in the 2 towns in Massachusetts that okay these things. So that's something as we're moving forward on this other avenue of dispensaries and all the rest, we may want to take that into account.
So, just to let you know, I added a thing called Medical Marijuana Emporium at the suggestion of like a workshop I went to. It would be a place, like a club where people who have medical marijuana licenses could get together. Yeah, it's actually, there's some place, I think around URI.
My house.
That's, yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
How do we make money off of that? The town?
It'd be a farming activity.
That's what I think. I think it would be
I mean,
farming.
I mean, that's great for the farmer who wants to jump on something new, but where would the tax basis be for the town of Forest?
It all goes to the state.
I'm not sure. It might not be considered agriculture.
I think it is. It is. Yeah.
Only if they have buildings.
Taxes, yeah, what are you gonna tax on a farm?
Unless somebody was gonna process their own stuff and.
Yeah, if you're gonna
they're
make
allowed to,
the
right?
roll,
Right, they're gonna
clean,
make
whatever
the-
they make.
Are they gonna manufacture their own or whatever they do? But I mean, the farmer is gonna make money. I'm sure there's a small percentage of taxes that we can, somewhere, I mean, can you tax a potato farmer?
No.
No.
So what's the difference with a hemp farmer?
Buildings.
There
The
is
only
none.
thing in
And it's
tax-
gonna be licensed by the state, right?
The
So
state's gonna make the
state's
money.
gonna be getting the money, not the
The
town.
state's gonna make the money, so I think the big hullabaloo, I'd rather see pot growing on Route 6 hemp farm than solar farms. My own personal opinion, but, I mean,
Then you need a knife with
but not, yes. With barbed wire at the top, right?
You know, it's a deer to eat it.
Electrified.
I mean, a lot of people are making a big thing about hemp farming and the new industry and the new this. That's great for whoever wants to do it. It doesn't put any revenue in our pocket, so I don't see the hand worked up about it.
But the other thing is that, I think what the towns that have already experienced is the increased need for
Security and police and all of that. I would think that would put a boom on.
ambulance and emergency services, and that, all the burden of all of that falls directly on
The solar farms generate a tremendously amount more of revenue to the town of Forster than a hemp farm would.
Which is not a lot to begin with. So, you know, I guess 15,000 better than no thousand.
And let, I mean, be totally off, but as far as I know, the solar does not generate any of the emergency
No.
police, et cetera, but,
Yeah, I would think that would be a problem. But, I don't know everything.
So do you wanna go?
I could go over a little bit more that what was interesting is, we had, let's see, we were gonna make, compassion centers allowed in the GBM, but not the licensed cultivators, and John Recibo pointed out at the town council meeting that compassion centers can cultivate as well, so it kind of doesn't make sense to allow a compassion center and not a licensed cultivator, so I changed that. And then, the other concern, was that people would know, that there was licensed cultivators. This was a big concern. But the truth is, the list is on the website for the state, and even if you allowed it by right, they would still have to come here with planning for site design, for site layout, because it's a commercial. So I didn't think that was another concern. And then I also added, you'll see a bunch, a separate thing called supplementary regulations that basically says that you have to go get a building permit, and go to the firefighter, fire marshal, and then there are certain things you need to do. And I added those because there was a concern that these are regulations that are already, when they're getting a license, that they should know about, but just to reiterate that they have to do these things. And then there's something else to consider. There are different types of licensed cultivator classes. So you might want to allow certain classes, certain sizes, and not other sizes. That might be something that you want to think about. I believe that the state hasn't even licensed any class C or D yet.
Mhm.
So it's really only micro A and B. So those are things to think about.
Anybody have any questions at this point, or you want to take time to review this? Review this and discuss it at the next meeting. And if you have any input, you can send it along to Jennifer. You have something for discussion.
I'll send it to you electronically too. I have to remember to.
Anybody have any questions, Mike? Yep. Everybody's good? All right, move on to next.
Route 6.
Route 6. Okay. Commercial, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything on that tonight? Additional?
Well, I'd like to discuss it.
I know, we'll discuss it. I didn't know if you had.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I've been looking through some prohibited uses and I didn't get it for you, but those are things that you should think about, are uses that we should and shouldn't have. For instance, one of the things that's prohibited is our breweries, and I think that you might want to change something like that.
What's that?
A brewery, like a place where you make beer.
Yeah, that's a
Like-
microbrewery, not a brewery.
Well-
A large brewery.
Yeah.
You mean microbrewery?
Yeah.
Isn't that in there?
It's only allowed if it's attached to a restaurant.
Okay.
So maybe you just want to allow it.
There's a lot of that popping up.
Yeah.
So I got a big one at Exeter, really, it's.
Yeah, yeah.
Buying beer. I believe what they pay for that stuff.
Yeah, they're growing hops and then they're using it in their beer and then they're, I don't know why we don't allow it, so, I mean, that's something,
A brewery or the hops?
the brewery.
Microbrewery.
Why wouldn't anybody come and try to put one in?
No, but if they were, they would kind of be stopped by, oh, it's prohibited.
Oh,
Is it
Yeah.
prohibited?
It's prohibited completely, like, there's a list of uses that are
That
prohibited.
prohibited a whole bunch, tanneries,
Yes.
Yeah, well, breweries.
breweries, there's a
That
whole
was
bunch.
Back in the day
Yeah,
when
yeah.
breweries were breweries, but today, you know, microbreweries been big in the last
I can
50
make
years.
a list. and-
Piggeries, all that's listed in there.
Yeah. yeah,
I
so we
think
had that
those are the
same-
kinds of things you should change.
Right, because there's so many things we gotta do because of the update our zoning ordinances completely.
I have to tell you, like, the
And we wanna look
piggery,
at things.
yeah, somebody actually called me a couple of weeks ago, and we talked with Rhett, and they wanted to raise pet pigs, and because piggeries are prohibited, we said, no, you can't.
Well,
I mean, you can come in with a variance.
But I think a piggery is considered if you're feeding them garbage and stuff like that.
right,
Isn't that-
you're running up against the Right to Farm Act that tells somebody they can't raise hogs in a rural community. I've always looked at that ordinance and said, that can be challenged immediately.
No,
Yeah.
when we reviewed that ordinance, that is, if you look at the definition of a piggery is not somebody with a pig farm. A
We did look
piggery
at
was
the-
something to do with what they feed the pigs, and if they have garbage on the property, they're
Because
feeding them
the
garbage
applicants
and
were
waste and
trash
stuff.
haulers.
Right.
Yeah, we read it, and we thought it's,
Because I think when we reviewed
wasn't.
that ordinance, when we
Oh.
reviewed the use table a few years ago when Juliana was here, that did come up, and there was some discussion on it. I'm just going by memory at this point.
Do you think we should review the list of things that are prohibited?
Yes,
Obviously, people
yes.
very think as well.
Perfect. Yes.
Tanneries, distilleries, breweries, piggeries, there's a lot of rees in there.
Yeah, like for another, sawmills are prohibited in certain areas. Not in the business they're allowed.
When you say areas, you mean zoning?
Yes, certain
Certain
zoning, that's
zones.
what we're doing, we're looking at the zoning, so if you wanna look at,
Which I think would do.
I believe the sawmills are only allowed in.
Those are grandfathered
manufacturing.
in, they've got permits, they're grandfathered in.
Okay, grandfather, that's forced, we're all grandfather.
Well, it happened before zoning, which was 1972.
All right.
Trying to,
All right.
Okay.
So, you had something around?
Yeah.
Commercial, I think.
so we have a number of things we're talking about. One is a fee structure that everybody who's supposed to get Jennifer, there are things that should be set up for fees or could be set up for fees. I gave her 17 or 18. The second thing we're talking about is things that could possibly be changed to be allowed. And the third thing we're talking about is commercial zoning on Route 6, which is what I'd like to address. In the last X amount of months, I've watched numerous parcels of commercial property on Route 6 turned into second car parts sales. So if you're selling used car parts, they usually come from something which is a car that you're tearing apart. So if you're tearing apart a car in a building, you're running a junkyard.
We're already on it, Ron.
Okay, well, but you don't mind that I
Just so
keep
you know.
talking?
No, no,
Yeah,
that's
thank
fine.
you.
I'm just letting you know.
So that's why, so thank you. When you're doing those things, you also should have non-permeable membranes on. If you're storing heavy equipment on dirt, you should have a non-permeable membrane. Those properties should be inspected. Most of the properties on Route 6 are turning themselves into storage facilities of cars, trucks, I'm not naming any names, different businesses that were something are now something else. And with the auction house, that's a car auction house, which is a very good, viable thing. What I see Route 6 turning into is a storage facility. So I think we should be talking about fee structures and zoning structures for storage facilities of containers, and that's not dumpsters, that's containers, of truck trailers, of businesses that are running on parcels, dumping cans of, resurfacing driveway stuff. So I'm suggesting that we put on our agenda and the attorneys start to work on something called lot storage. And that classify as trucks, cars, containers, dumpsters, and those parcels be taxed or feed as a separate entity. Besides, first of all, we don't even have a zone for that. We just call it commercial and they can do whatever they want. Second of all, if we designate a zone and we charge them $2,000 per lot, I can pick up 20 grand right away out of the 10 set of people that are doing it. The council's job is to raise new revenues to help support the tax base. So I think our job is to start to work on these 3 items I mentioned give me a word, at the same time, okay?
Simultaneous.
Thank you, Helen, simultaneously. See, wordsmith. So, this is something that I think we should be putting on our agenda. You know, I'm gonna say this, okay? And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna look right at it, okay? The council's year after, I'm sorry. The councils year over year have failed in their jobs, and my suggestion, whether it's accepted or not, is their responsibility. So Mr. Rogers, you're going to the State House. I know you're going to bring back all kinds of bacon for us. Thank you.
Hey, Ron, I'm pretty sure I missed one of your,
I
you
think-
had 3.
Oh, no, my 3 things were talking about fees,
Right.
talking about zoning, rezoning Route 6 or adding zones,
For storage.
and this third thing of looking at Route 6 as just open storage facilities. And that's what Route 6 has turned out to be.
Industrial storage.
Well, see, it's not industrial. They're cars, they're trucks. Industrial storage is a whole different thing. Heavy equipment.
I think the direction that Ron's leading into is things are happening on Route 6 beyond the town's business, and if we let it get out of control, it's only getting worse. All of a sudden, there's a lot of dismantling of vehicles in garages and stuff like that. I'm sure the town council, there's one particular, but I see another one starting, and another one that you're probably not aware of. And
You can mention to it after that.
you could, you know, selling secondhand parts. There's a license to sell secondhand parts,
Yeah, dismantler's license.
but then you're in the car business, okay, so if you're taking that car apart and then you're selling the part, well, you need a license or something else to do, and meet restrictions. There you go, meet restrictions on that other side. But in turn that somebody, and I won't mention the name of the company, Davies, which parked their vehicles forever on the corner of 6, has now up and left and went parked someplace else. But in turn, they left behind a storage container. There's containers of oil that are on the side of that, and they just up and left and done their own thing. So if you really,
That container's full of oil.
Well, that's the job for the zoning official.
I get it, but the point being made, okay, without us telling them what to do, or the town council what to do, or whatever, by allowing certain things to go on, it's only gonna get worse, progressively getting worse, you know? And it's allowable if somebody wants to pay for it, I guess, you know, if you want to do that.
Well, it has to be regulated.
It's not,
I know we're in the business, I know we had to build a big area to put our waste oil containers, so they contain, in case it ever leaked, the waste oil would leach into the ground.
you know what it takes, right?
Hydraulic fluid,
Everything.
diesel fluid.
It's tough. All right, did you have anything else on commercial?
Nope, so I think that's something we should be looking at in the future.
Okay. All right, we got the traffic mitigation in Cucumber Hill and Route 6. Jen had
I wrote
drafted a
a,
letter.
yeah, I can read it out loud, since you guys didn't get it until tonight.
Okay.
That would be great.
It's short, really
Yeah.
short.
It's to the point.
It's to the point. So the planning board has discussed the need for a traffic signal at the intersection of Cucumber Hill Road and Route 6, a state road, and a lowering of the speed limit on Route 6 in the same area. We request that the town council send a letter of inquiry to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation as to the possibility of constructing such a traffic signal and lowering the speed limit. This letter should be read out loud at the next town council meeting in its entirety.
And could we, the letter's fine, I think we should suggest to the town council in that letter that they get the accident statistics and add it from the police chief and add that to the letter.
or an addendum or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you call it, when you add supporting
Information, yeah,
Information.
supporting documents.
They're adding to that list every day up there, they have 2 or 3 accidents in the last week.
Yeah, there was.
They're all left-hand turns. What's happening, it's been happening for years, because it's 4 lanes. What'll happen is, the car coming up in the high-speed lane will wave somebody to turn in front of them, and somebody comes up the low-speed lane and clocks them. It has really nothing to do with
So
speed.
there's people stopping right there. I
Stop.
see it all the time, they tell you, go ahead,
Go ahead, and that happens. So it's all driver error, turning left into oncoming traffic. What I usually do is I go past the car and turn behind him.
So a red light would work there, wouldn't it?
Yes.
A turning lane light would work.
Yeah.
A red light.
But the last time the state did a survey over there, because it's 4 lanes in the speed, and sometimes too slow a speed causes accidents, they said because it was 4 lanes, it wouldn't qualify for a light. That's the only way they put the light at 6 and 94 was the same thing. The traffic count of 4 lanes didn't dictate, it would cause more fatalities if they put a light on when it was 4 lanes. When they went to single lane, they increased the count changes to a single lane, and then it was qualified to put a light at 6 and 94. Because 6 and Cucumber Hill is still 4 lanes, it does not qualify for a light. Putting a light in there with a 4-lane highway would cause more fatalities than it would help.
Well, actually, it could, sorry, Joe, I'm sorry.
That was their last,
Yeah, I think a big problem is because those 2 roads are coming out of Connecticut.
right.
So there's such a short distance to go down to 1 lane that quick is almost.
And that's what they said.
Without.
That's why when they redid all of Route 6, they kept that 4 lanes
Yeah, but-
from the Sunoco station
Come around
down
the
instead
corner,
of going to
You're
Cigna.
at the intersection before you even get a chance to see if the cars come. Because I know that's why I was trying to point out at the last meeting that there is a problem with the traffic coming out of Connecticut because it's, you know.
They had a whole hearing on that and went through that whole
State
thing.
still, yeah.
How long ago would you say that is? What's it called?
Before they went from 4 lanes to single, they said when it was 4 lanes all the way down, they tried getting the light at 6 and 94, and they said it would cause more fatalities because it's 4 lanes and it didn't dictate having the light there with 4 lanes on their traffic. There's experts that do this. But when we went to a single lane, they redid it, and the count dictated that it was safer to put a light at
I
6.
think the lane with the turn signal, I think, works.
But having a light there, you would have to have a red light, which would dictate the turning signal, and that's what they're saying, would cause more accidents because it's 4 lanes. And the
Okay,
reason they didn't go to single lane is because the onflow of traffic coming out of Connecticut off of, that's actually an interstate highway, right at the state line. It's Governor Francis.
okay,
So we read the letter, you want to make a motion to send this to the council?
yeah, I'd like
They can have
to,
the-
may I just add one more discussion here? You know, Gordon, you really are something, okay? Having gotten this information from Gordon, that's valuable. There is a single lane, and it's at the top of the Sunoco station. So if a light was put, if we changed our discussion into a light at the Sunoco station where there have been numerous deaths, and that would stop the people coming out of Shipley Schoolhouse Road and Cucumber Hill Road having to deal with traffic coming from both ways. There would be a break in the traffic coming down.
It would give them a break.
All right, so I don't know if that's a viable solution, but if Gordon is correct, and there have been, and I don't know how many deaths at the Sunoco station over the years. So that would give the people at the Sunoco station the ability to get out. It would give the people a break going west, all right, or the people coming out of Cucumber and Woodlawn, and they'd only have to deal with the Connecticut traffic. So I don't know if that's a viable solution, but that may be something the council and the chief and the rest of everybody else wants to deal with. Do we want to add that to the letter? Or do we just want to,
change the letter to move the replacement of
Of the light.
the light.
I don't know if they would put a light in front of, because it's not an intersection there. I mean, I know there's, like when you have big shopping centers, they put lights because it's,
Yeah, intersection does make sense, but
Yeah,
I think.
I know what he's saying.
I think, no, but I think if they restructure it, the funny thing about it is the speed limit coming off of,
That's the big issue.
Coming.
I think the big problem is coming out today.
okay, but hear me out. The speed limit coming out of 395 is 40 miles an hour. Then as soon as they cross into Forster, it goes to 45 miles an hour. The speed limit stays 45 miles an hour all the way down to Route 6 and 94. And we have a red light there at 45 miles an hour. So if it's at 40 miles an hour with a red light, I think we should leave that up to the engineers and all of that, but I think it, stuff that happened before, we try it again. There's new people in there, just like we get new senators, they get new DOT directors, they have all those people, so it might be worth a shot, to go at DOT again, and maybe somebody there with a different mindset might agree with us and come up with something.
One thing, the police can park at the state line down and give tickets out all day long. I never see a cop there. Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to, I have not seen a cop there, okay? And I try and go out there in the morning and at night, right? And that's when people are going to work and coming home and they're doing 70 miles an hour.
Well, that's the problem, the speed limit is 40, but they're coming out on that highway at 65.
So,
I go down that
I don't know, is there anybody from the council?
But it's such a short distance where that road merges, and I think it's gonna be a two-state issue, kind of. I don't know how
Oh, yeah,
Rhode Island has any authority of what Connecticut, if we want to put a light there, can we make Connecticut restructure their
We
road?
used to have a police car there with nobody in it a long time ago.
Yeah, I put a sign on it, for sale, hold it up.
They used to have one on Route 3 in Connecticut, they had a dummy in it.
You never saw that sign, no?
Oh, God.
Killing's gotta be having as much of a problem with that intersection as we do.
Oh, they had a bad accident up the road there.
All right, so sorry to have done this. I'll make a
That's
motion
okay.
that we move,
Just send this letter.
yeah, just send this letter without my whole discussion about the light thing. Just send this letter forward to the council
Well, with the traffic statistics.
with the traffic.
With the traffic, that's
Yeah,
the
we'll say that. Okay,
statistics,
so we
yeah.
have a second on that?
I think before we do the second, now that I'm thinking, before we do a second amendment, I think if you continue down Route 6 and you start going into Danielson or Brooklyn, there's 4 lanes there with traffic lights.
Yeah, where the interstate is.
And then, well, yeah, there's a lot of 4 lanes. There's a lot of 4 lanes with traffic
Oh, there's lights all
lights.
over the place.
So maybe there's like, we might have a new DOT guy, like somebody might do it. Maybe Peter Alvini will be,
It's
sympathetic.
definitely a problem there as far as, accidents, I mean,
They have to do the engineering, they have to make the decisions.
And they won't do it
We can
unless,
ask them.
they won't do it unless we ask.
Yeah, there you
because
go.
I know.
Okay, is there a second here?
I second.
You second. Anthony's gonna second. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 6-0. All right, what do we got left? Oh, this is something Jennifer
Yeah.
talked to.
Yeah, so I called Scott Gibbs, who is, runs the Rhode Island Foundation for Economic Development. He runs the CVS Corporate Park. And he also, I found out from talking to his staff, that he did some work in Burrville as well. And he's willing to come in and talk about what potential, he knows about what the market is for industrial or commercial buildings, so he can talk to us a little bit about what might be able to happen. He said that he would like, though, for me to ask when you'd like him to come, and he knows when the planning board meetings are, and they're good, and he wants to know what you'd like to know before he comes, so he can present something.
Is there a Fidelity kicking around or a Citizens Bank?
Citizens that might want to. He actually asked me if there was a different
Mindset up
board, yes, like a mindset, and I said, I think that they're ready to do something, so.
There we go.
Now,
There we go.
so basically, we're probably talking maybe February. Well, we got the Capitol in January. Right?
Yeah, that's gonna be a big thing.
That's one meeting in January. We got the first meeting in January, maybe. We got questions ready by then. You know, but we gotta try to get some stuff by the next meeting to see what we have for him and send it out to him and see if he's available. And we can go from there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
February? Okay.
Yeah, well,
What was
yeah.
there was a name on
Copy it.
Scott Gibbs,
Scott.
yeah.
that, and he's in Boston.
But they still.
He's actually in Woonsocket, and I found he's doing another project in Newport as well, helping Newport.
He worked in CBS.
No, he works for CBS Media.
He runs the corporate park where CVS is, and there's other companies there as well. And he told me he helped the city of Newport renovate one of their buildings. He helped in Burrville, he helped the town buy a piece of property and get it redeveloped. And so he's really,
These were the things that I mentioned a year ago and said how they come in to buy a dead piece of property on eminent domain that's not doing anything from a person, so forth, to help develop it. This is where it had all started, in Central Falls, Woonsocket, and so forth, and some little things, but that gets construed. But that's what economic development does in the state. They'll come in and they'll help you out. They'll help the town out to turn
Yep.
things over.
and I told him that we were, there's concern about a new library or a new police station and I talked to USDA and they have money for like a police station, so you could maybe add on and do some commercial development with and get money from all different avenues.
Yeah.
No, he's a consultant, is that what he does?
Yeah, he's a consultant, he just does economic development.
No, he doesn't charge anything.
He does, but he's willing to come and talk with you
To
about what,
to
yeah.
see if he could be of service.
We can't
Yes.
afford it, don't let them come.
No, listen,
I'm just curious.
I'd like to throw out just an old idea that I hear,
But,
Things Made Wonderful is closing.
mhm.
Years ago, there was a suggestion that that building be turned into the town hall, which we no longer need. But it could be a viable spot for the police station and the library. So, again,
Where's that?
Things Made Wonderful
The
is
reason
closing.
Because or things.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
The reason that it's closing is because
The rent signs me today.
this is, what I was told was that the owner of the property has raised.
The rent.
Jacked up the rent.
Right.
So, I don't know how that's.
But that, again, all I'm saying is, Gordon, I'll tell you, I don't want to be mocked by you.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Savasio.
So, again, if there's a possibility.
You don't
that
need
the-
mocking.
The building could go for sale, it may be something the council might want to think about. There are needs here.
Well, it's interesting,
I'm sorry.
they raised the rent, and they must have, you think they'd have some plans.
Exactly.
It was a good,
You got
it was a good tenant without any plan
Yeah.
for the building, but we'll see what happens over there. Okay, I think we're all set with that, unless you have anything further, I think we've pretty much covered it. If you have any ideas that we can forward to Scott, for the next meeting, we can discuss it, or we can send it along to Jen.
I make a motion to adjourn, if that's possible. No, sorry.
Future agenda was up.
Yeah, actually, for the future agenda items, a couple of them.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
And I need to preface this by saying that, projecting these things around town, there's an awful lot of myths and stories that are going on about what we can and can't do by certain things. I'd like to recommend that, first off, on a future agenda item, that we have a town hall that's half unusable. Let's fix it. Let's make a plan, let's find out what's gonna cost us, whatever. We don't have to do it all at once, but we can start eating away at what's wrong with that building. Because it should be usable. whatever you want to use it for, it should be usable. And the second thing I'd like to look at, I've checked into the state regulations over about a municipal court. I've been told many, many times that it's too expensive. I've also been told many, many times that we never had one. First off, we did have one. And secondly, you don't have to run a municipal court every day or even once a week. You can run a municipal court for 4 hours, once a month, once every 2 months. It does not have, we can tailor it to our own needs. It doesn't have to be expensive. I don't know whether it would do the town any good, but I think it's something that somebody ought to look at.
Well, we
Charter
did
amendment.
try to get that about 10 years ago.
Charter amendment was put on and it failed.
It failed 10 years ago, but maybe it's changed since then. But it was a charter amendment about 10 years back.
There's
It didn't pass.
the Rhode Island Department of Planning is responsible for compiling information on this. And there's a couple pages that are dedicated to it. And the statistics show that most towns in the state have one. More of those towns have the authorization for them. And there's only like, I think there's 8 towns. I think there's 8 towns that have the authorization for them. But included in that 8, there's only 13 towns out of the 39, 38 that do have them. And some of them really only run about 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night or something like that.
So
So that's something we can discuss.
there's two future agenda items.
The municipal court and the town.
Right.
Okay.
I have to say, I did forget to put on the agenda, which I think you guys were talking about last time, which I can include on a future agenda item, which is having subcommittees.
Yes,
I'd forgotten
Yeah.
about that.
that's fine.
Yeah, we would. When we.
So we're gonna add that.
Chris, it was
It's unfortunate because you're
procedure
coming
or
up with these great
whatever.
ideas, but I mean, where they come from here? I mean, a year ago, I came up with the zoning on Route 6, and it's a year later. We haven't made this much progress with it.
We're gonna try and move.
I mean, it's great to come up with ideas, but I mean,
One thing that we did, especially when we were working on and then reworking on the comp plan in the past, was we just had subcommittees working on different sections, and they didn't, you can only have 3 people, you can't have more than 3 people, you can't talk on any other thing except what you're
I think
working
that's a
on.
great idea.
But, we would work on Saturdays, we would work at people's houses, and we did, we got a lot of work done in those committees, and then you could just bring it to the board and get
I
it.
think that's good, having
Present.
all 4 of them.
Yeah, that was something
Present
I guess.
what-
But after it leaves our table, let me give ourselves a pat on the back. After we come up with the ideas and all, whatever, and it leaves our tables, what happens?
Well, it's gonna go through the process, and depending on what it is, certain things, if there's zoning ordinances, they gotta go through the council, public hearing, and then they have to be approved by the council. And they could amend them or send them back, or whatever.
I'll tell you what's gonna happen with the municipal court.
That has to be, I think, a charter.
It's gonna be the taxpayers.
What's gonna happen with the municipal court is Situate's gonna put one in before us, and everybody who gets a ticket in Gloucester is gonna be going to the Situate municipal court, in Forster, because it's closer. Okay, speak about municipal court, I've gotten them in, going to Johnston for them, for their municipal court.
And you got the ticket in Johnston, right?
Yeah.
Municipal court is in the municipality,
And
correct?
just-
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
The town gets more money from their tickets because they move it out.
Could we save the
Yeah,
discussion?
we really
Right?
probably-
That's
probably-
right.
I'm sorry, Ron, you're
No,
absolutely.
no, just,
No, it makes sense. I mean,
Well, we're not
it's just
supposed to-
another idea we're throwing around that'll never happen.
Well, if we put it on the agenda, we can discuss it then, but we're not supposed to
No.
discuss it because it's not on the
You're
agenda.
absolutely right. Ron made a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, yeah.
I second it.
All right, all in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
8:15.
Thank you.
Well,